Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this sort of event about our skills bootcamp that we are offering. I am going to introduce you to a few people. I am just going to give it a minute longer before I fully start, so people don't miss the introductions. But it's lovely to have you all on the call today. Hopefully we are going to be able to answer any questions that you might have about our skills bootcamp. So yeah, I'm just going to give it a minute longer because we do have more people joining us. But yeah, feel free to pop your video on if you're comfortable, or you can leave it off. That's absolutely fine. Just a bit of housekeeping. If you're not speaking, it would be great if you can stay on mute. The way that we'll run the Q&A is you can either ask questions sort of by unmuting yourself and asking a question when it's time to ask, or you can type in the chat box at the bottom. So everybody should be able to add a question and we'll go through them one by one, or people could just sort of put the hand up and sort of ask a question and we can sort of direct it to the right person that will hopefully be able to help. All right, I hope everyone has had a good day. Let's get started so those of us that are here can get going with the questions. So I'm Rachel, I work at Makers closely with the admissions team, so I'll be able to answer any questions you have about the application process to the skills bootcamp and what that looks like. We also have Joe on the call who does the same job as me, so he'll be able to answer similar questions to those. We also have Leo on the call, who is one of our technical coaches. Thanks, Leo. And we also have 3 current students that are on one of our skills bootcamps. So we have Lisa, we have Alex, and we have Charlie. Can you give us a wave, guys? Perfect. So this is the best chance to ask people on the course how they're finding it, you know, what was their coding background, had they done any coding before, or are they completely sort of new to coding and yeah, have managed to join us on this journey. So I am going to pass to Lisa first. Do you mind just giving us a little introduction to yourself, like whether you've done any coding before or whether you're sort of like brand new to coding and you've just started recently? Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. So I've done some HTML and a little bit of CSS. So before I worked as a web editor, a website manager, but I didn't really have much experience with programming and logic. And so I've done a little bit. I've been to things like Codebar, which is, well, they hold workshops for females and ethnic minority students, and that helped, but nothing formally. And so this has been really great in doing it full time.
Amazing. Thanks, Lisa. Charlie, do you mind going next and just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Well, I don't have much experience before Makers. Basically, all my experience is down to online courses or self-learning, reading about Python, about logic structures. And yeah, basically online courses is most that I've done, is the most of the experience and most of the touch I've had with the technology industry. So yeah, for those that are with us in the meeting, Makers is a great opportunity, definitely to start learning and to start to get to know how it's working with coding and how to get in touch with this such amazing technology.
Thanks, Charlie. And finally, Alex, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? For anybody that's just joined us, we have some current skills bootcamp students on the call with us. So they're just giving us a brief introduction to their journey with coding so far. We'll soon start with the Q&A where you can ask any questions that are on your mind about our next skills bootcamp. So handing back to Alex.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Well, I'm Alex. I have a fine art background, so I've done some programming because we had some digital arts courses, I guess, at uni. But so I did some JavaScript, I did some C++, graphics oriented, but it wasn't the best informed experience I've had in my life. And it's true that going through Makers now, the training that we're being offered is very different. It's being taught in a way that I feel like I'm just relearning everything from scratch. And I do feel like I'm learning from a really beginner's level to a very experienced level every day, more and more. So yeah, that's what I can say.
Thank you, all of you. That's perfect. So yeah, what we will do is open sort of the forum to questions. So yeah, if anybody wants to either just unmute themselves and ask the question directly, or you can type in the chat box. If anybody can you put yourselves on mute if you're not asking a question? Anybody that's just joined us, that would be fab.
Can you see me? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can hear somebody, but we can't see you.
On the other side of the street. I see you. I see you. Come here. Come here. I see you. Come here. Come here.
Let me just mute everybody. I can't see it. Okay. Perfect. Does anybody have any questions that we can get started with? Otherwise, I can sort of direct some questions.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Eustace, we can.
Okay. The question I wanted to ask, do you think it's possible someone new to coding within 3 weeks could actually go through the Code Academy, Ruby, and get 100 on a Code Wars? Is that achievable, do you think?
So perfect, thanks. So I guess one thing I forgot to mention, obviously, we have one last skills bootcamp that is starting on the 8th of November. So we have had a few courses start already as part of this skills bootcamp scheme, but the last one that we're running this year is going to start on the 8th of November. There are some deadlines for people to meet. So the deadline is actually coming up this week on Sunday to complete Code Academy and Code Wars. So I guess if you're completely new to the Skills Bootcamp and you haven't perhaps already put in your application, it could be a little bit late for you to join this bootcamp. I would say that it might be an opportunity in the future to join a Skills Bootcamp, but for this year, the 8th of November is the last start date that we're going to have. And the Code Academy and Code Wars need to be completed at the end of this week. So Eustace, I think hopefully that answers your question. It's doable in 2 to 3 weeks, but you won't meet the deadlines, unfortunately, for this next start date.
Okay, yeah, it's just I looked at it and I found it quite difficult. I was just wondering how anyone could have been able to do this, even within a month. And, you know, I know a tiny bit, but to get the 100 honor is quite difficult.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't know whether Lisa, Charlie, Alex, you have any sort of like experience. How long did it take you to go through those resources that we asked you to do?
I can say, okay, I worked really hard on this and I worked on it like day and night. That's because I wanted it really badly. And so I think when your why becomes big enough, then you can do it. And I was in a job and I wasn't really enjoying myself, and I knew that I wasn't being challenged. And I thought, we were dealing with a really clunky CMS and it was horrible. And I thought, I'm exchanging my life for not much money. And software engineering, I knew was going to be more difficult, more challenging, but more intellectually fulfilling. And that's when I made that jump, and I did work at it really hard. And so they gave me that deadline, and I actually, you know, I might be a bit slower than other people, and that's why I had to put more time in. Can people mute themselves if they're not talking as well, just so we can hear all the background noise? Okay, but yeah, that's my take on it. If you really want it badly, and when your why becomes big enough, then I just really pushed myself like until like late at night, and I'm really enjoying it because I know that I've stretched myself and I've grown personally and professionally, and I wouldn't have been happy if I didn't give it my all and didn't get the place.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. And Alex, yeah, we'll just hear from you and then we'll move on to the next one. But I know that people find the resources challenging, and we know that. So yeah, let's hear from Alex.
Yeah, I think it's worth just mentioning, as it took me a week and a half. So just so you have a time thing. Yeah, week and a half. And like Lisa said, like kind of constant every day.
Thank you both. That's amazing. Yeah, does anybody else? I can't see any questions in the chat, or there's one just come through. When is the next cohort? So the next and last cohort starts on the 8th of November. Anybody else?
It's Eustace again. Is there any reason why you picked, why makers picked Ruby as the language?
Perfect. I am going to hand this one to Leo, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So initially we picked Ruby because it's a quite simple language to, I mean, not that simple, but like it doesn't have any other like extra complexity like some other languages like JavaScript could have, or some other languages could have. And so it's a good first language to learn like the basics of programming, which are already quite difficult, especially if you've never done any programming before, and basics of like good code design and good software processes and practices without getting too much overhead and have over complexity on the top of that, which is already quite difficult. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why we picked Ruby, it being quite a generalist language as well.
Thanks, Leo. That's amazing. Hopefully that answers your question. So I've had one come in. Thanks, Mehmet. You said you've already finished Code Academy, but you're needing to work on Code Wars. Will you have enough time? I think if you put your time into it this week, you should be able to reach it. I have some videos that I can share on some workshops that have happened over the last year. So I'll send those in sort of like a follow-up email for sort of everybody to have a look at tomorrow. Hopefully that will help you with your process and help you to achieve hopefully that 100 honor by the weekend. All right, let's have a look at the next one. Emilia has asked, I would like to ask about the recruitment stage. It starts at the end of the course or after. Can we join live recruitment events or only remote? So I'm going to let Joe answer this one.
Thanks, Rach. So in terms of the recruitment and the job hunt and everything like that, that all happens at the end of the course. And there'll be a little session coming around sort of week 10 of the full-time course where you start to meet the careers team and things like that. And one of the first things they'll say is just pretend we don't exist. The things that are going to get you hired is the learning that you're doing on the course. So you need to put your full sort of attention and energy into that. And then as soon as the course is over, that's when you put the full energy into the job hunt. And even with the job hunt, you'll still be sort of balancing your coding alongside it as well. We do have sort of these career events that come up, and they're run by our partnerships team. So our partnerships team manage our hiring partners, and they're out there trying to make new connections with new hiring partners. And a hiring partner is a company that works with us, and when they're hiring for a role, they'll put it exclusively to the makers job hunters. And so when they're looking for that role, they might come in and we might host a lunchtime talk or something. If there's more than one, we might have a bit of a careers fair. And at the moment, they're done all online because the majority of our course is online at the moment. As things open up, we like to bring some things in person, but there won't be a difference. They'll always be able to, if we do an in-person hiring event, we'll stream it live as well. So if you're never able to make it into our academy, you won't miss out on any opportunities. They'll be the same. And when it's one of these lunchtime talks or something, we'll bring in the hiring partner, we'll bring in the engineering managers, the people you'll be working with, your mentors that you'll have in those roles. And often there'll be makers there coming to speak about their time as well, considering they'll be one of our hiring partners. And they might be a couple of years into their experience there. So you'll really see what it's like to work there, what their culture's like, what the learning environment's like, and then you'll be able to speak to them directly. And if you like them, then you can apply to us, and it's kind of like a shortcutted experience, shortcutted process through that stage as well. But that's all to come. Try not to get too sort of in the mindset of the job right now, and don't let that distract you from what you're doing now. And this learning piece at the beginning and throughout the course is the most important part that you can sort of focus on right now.
Thanks, Joe. That's amazing. I've had a question come in about sort of requirements and sort of what we're looking for from candidates. So currently applications are still live for the 8th of November start date. There are a couple of requirements. You do have to live in London, and you do have to be aged 19 or above at some point during the training. So if you're not 19 yet, but you become 19 within the sort of 4-month training period, that's absolutely fine. Some of the requirements of the application process are, I'll ask Joe to put them in the chat, but one of them is the Learn Ruby course on Code Academy. That gives you a brief overview of Ruby as a language, and hopefully will be a good introduction to Ruby. And then we ask you to go on Code Wars, which is again another online platform that's free to use, and we want you to work on katas, they're called, which are like coding challenges, and we want you to get to 100 on there. That's the first step of the application process. Once you've shared your profiles with us, we then invite you to do an online coding challenge. That is called Codabyte. So you might have seen that word thrown around in emails. The Codabyte assessment is 4 Ruby challenges for you to do online. And then the final step of the application process is having a phone call with somebody from our admissions team, one of our selection coaches. If you manage to go through all those 3 phases, we'll have a look at your application and we'll consider you for the 8th of November start date. Joe has posted already the deadlines for some of these things, just because we have a specific selection day where we're going to announce to people that have been selected. So that's why you have to sort of keep as much as we can to the deadline so that we can, hopefully bring some more people onto the Skills Bootcamp. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm just having a look at the next one. So somebody's saying they submitted their Code Wars sort of profile by mistake. That's absolutely fine. Once you do reach 100, our system will recognize that and it will send you the link to Codabyte. So yeah, you can submit your profiles even if you're not quite completed with them. As soon as you are completed, our system will send you the online assessment to work through. So we've got a question, Leo, that you might be able to help us with. Someone has said they're not sure yet exactly what they'd like to do. Is this course good for me if I was considering a career in, for example, data analytics or cybersecurity?
Yeah, so that one's a bit of a tough one because as of now, we don't have specialization on data analytics or cybersecurity. However, if you're not sure yet what you want to do, it's also good because the course is generalistic and will teach you way more than just software engineering, programming, and those things. It will also teach you how to learn new things. You will kind of learn how to be independent in your learning and to get on new learnings and not only like learn the curriculum that we are delivering, right? So if you're not sure what you like to do yet, but you kind of want a generalistic approach and then to be able to have the tools and the processes to learn new things by yourselves, then yeah, it's definitely a good one, I'd say.
Thanks, Leo. That's perfect. We will go to Samir next. He's put his hand up, so that's perfect. Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. So my question was around the Codabyte assessment. I was just wondering if you had any advice on how best to prepare for that assessment piece.
Amazing. I am going to pass to Alex, Lisa, or Charlie. Obviously, don't tell them what the questions are, but do you have like some insight? Obviously, hopefully the resources that we've asked you to prepare will help you for Codabyte. But yeah, how did you guys find the challenges? Yeah, hopefully you can just, I guess, share a little bit about, was it what you expected? Was it easier? Was it harder? Just some general, I guess, some advice. Charlie, do you want to give some advice? That'd be fab.
Yeah, of course. That's what is interesting about pursuing a career with makers, because when you get to that point on the Codabyte, you have had like such much help and resources that will help you to achieve what those challenges require. And you have knowledge on how to search the right information in Google. You probably will have been in touch with code wars as well. So you have like an understanding on what is required to be able to cover those challenges. So yeah, no problem. Once you get started with code wars, combining with information that you have in Google, and also a few hints that you might find in the challenges, anyone will be able to cope with that.
Thanks, Charlie. Lisa, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd say after you've done Code Academy, Ruby, and also Code Wars, I found Codabyte easier than Code Wars, and I found it unsurprisingly like a lot easier. And so I was kind of worried I'd made mistakes actually. So once you've gone through the hard stuff, and then you'll really understand the code, because Code Wars is really good because it really helps you understand the data structures better. So before I didn't actually like Code Wars, but now I actually realize the use, because it helps you think about logic, how to structure your thought, and how to just understand the data and what you're dealing with, like the objects, so much better, because you have to learn how to manipulate it. So I'd say just in hindsight, if I could do it again, I would probably like prepare for it like so much more, because a full-time course is quite intensive, because you're learning lots of new things. So I would say, like prepare as much as you can, because once you start, it just whizzes past and you are learning so much. And you just want to find an extra 10 hours a day, but you can't. So that's what I would just recommend people to do, because the more preparation you do, it will stand you in good stead.
Thanks, Lisa and Charlie. Hopefully that was really helpful, to hear it from people that have had to go through the process. So the resources that we ask you to do are not only to help you in the admissions process, they help you to prepare just for the whole course in general. I have had some more questions come in on the chat, so I'm just going to go back to those. Mehmet, will the next course be completely remote? Yes, so the final bootcamp that we're doing on the 8th of November is a fully remote course for 16 weeks. So if people aren't aware, the course is split up into 2 parts: a pre-course, which is the first 4 weeks of the course, which is part-time hours. That then leads into a 12-week full-time bootcamp. All right, I'm going to go to the next one. How long do we have to complete the challenge after you finish Code Wars? So I assume you're talking about Codabytes. So you'll have a week to complete the Codabyte. It's an hour timed assessment. So you'll have until Sunday the 24th to submit your assessment, but you will have just 1 hour to complete 4 small Ruby challenges. We send you instructions when we send you the link to the challenges. Just having a look. So we have another one sort of about after the course from Sam. Are you usually close to UK employers? Would any of you want to share your general thoughts on the junior developer market in the UK right now? What do you think employers are mostly looking for in your graduates, and what have you seen lead to success? There's also a bit more, what do you think is the best way to get the most out of a bootcamp like Makers? So I'm first going to pass to Joe, and then maybe Leo, you might have some things to add about sort of towards the end of the course.
Yeah, thanks, Rach. I'll start with, what do you think is the best way to get the most out of Makers? And Lisa touched on it there. It's being really prepared and ready for the course. Don't try and rush into it. And the more prepared you are, the more it's going to complement your experience in the course. You don't have to have covered all the topics that we're covering, and you don't have to be a pro coder, but you want to be mentally ready, maybe leaving your job beforehand, before joining the course, putting in that extra work to try a variety of different resources. We recommend Code Academy and Code Wars, and that's kind of like the bare minimum in a way. But you can really round off your Ruby learning, deepen it by using YouTube, using alternative resources. I'm happy to sort of send some as well. Having that extra rounded knowledge is just going to help when you start the course. There's weekend challenges along the way, along the course as well. Keeping those free so that you're ready to go for it. It's kind of like a revision throughout the week. You're going to get the most out of it that way. Just really throwing yourself at it, keeping an open mind. It's a full stack course, so you'll be covering both ends. So you'll learn a lot about what you like and what you don't like on the course. So just make sure you keep an open mind when you're coming into that. And as I mentioned before, focusing on the coding first, and then after you finish the course, that's when you should focus on that job hunt. And you want to kind of balance your coding consistently with your job hunt. We've got career coaches, technical coaches, and sort of pastoral support coaches. You'll be able to book in one-to-one sessions with these people, and they'll help you keep on track. It's quite hard going from that structured, fast-paced environment of the course to suddenly the open-ended week of the job hunt. And so keeping yourself structured, making sure you know what a good day looks like, a good week looks like, and so that you can sort of keep on track. I say that those are the best ways to sort of make the most out of it. In terms of what the UK job market looks like now, it looks good, it looks strong, and makers are getting a large proportion of those jobs that are out there now as well. I think Leo will be able to talk a little bit more about the types of things maybe that makers train that sort of appealing to employers. I used to work on the partnerships team here, and we used to show around hiring partners, and one thing that they'd always say sort of gets people over the line in interviews and things were skills that would come from our emotional intelligence curriculum, which is a huge part of makers. That there's so much to coding, there's so much to becoming an amazing coder and software engineer that isn't just the coding. It isn't just knowing Ruby, it isn't just knowing JavaScript. There's so much more to it, and we try and make these people with these growth mindsets, a lot of emotional intelligence, being able to work in any team. And if you notice kind of our skills that we try and teach, they're all these kind of open-ended ones: how to work in any team, how to pick up and use any language. And it's these types of skills I think that are probably the most important. But yeah, Leo, anything you wanted to add on?
Thank you very much. I know it was a long question.
Yeah, I can add. I mean, it's going to be hard to condense everything I would have to say in a light answer, but yeah, I definitely agree with everything that Joe said. And I guess if I had like one main advice to make the most of what Makers has to offer, is to really engage and embrace like the whole process and the whole holistic approach. So as Joe says, there's no like, not just like coding. Like I think I've interviewed in the past, and I have friends who are interviewing to hire juniors, and the hardest thing is not to find people who can program well or you can code, but the hard thing is to find people that have this like whole 360 aspects of like being good at communicating, being good at receiving feedback, being good at giving feedback, being good at functioning in a team, being adaptable and being able to learn and able to grow and having this growth mindset to learn new things, because the world of tech is always changing and you might need to work with slightly different tech in the next project or in the next company that you know already. There are all those things that make us teach aside from just like the technical aspect of it. And yeah, just by embracing it and trusting the process when you are makers, but at the same time looking after your emotional well-being. And that's why we have this whole EQ part of the curriculum, as Joe said, is also important as well. And also there was a coach at Makers the other day who said something that is really relatable, is to also be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You're going to learn a lot of new things, but you're going to discover that there's going to be a lot of things that you won't know and that you won't need to know right now. And it's going to be really hard to learn those things. So it's also being okay with not knowing things and recognizing that with having this mindset, you can always learn them later. And that's this mindset that people out there hiring junior devs are looking for. This mindset of like being able to say, maybe I don't know it, but I will learn it.
Thanks both. It's amazing. Someone's asked, Emerito's asked, is the bootcamp full-time or can it be done part-time? So it is a full-time bootcamp that you're sort of applying for. The first 4 weeks are part-time, but after that, it is a 12-week full-time course. So unfortunately, yeah, if you would have to, or not, you would have to give up your job in order to take up a space on the skills bootcamp. It can't be done part-time, unfortunately. All right, Sam has added another bit to a question. I read somewhere that Makers has been partnering with employees across Europe. Is the all partnership recruiting for this bootcamp in the UK, or are you also partnering with employees elsewhere in Europe, e.g. Holland, or even outside of Europe? I'm going to pass back to Joe to answer this one.
Thanks. So in terms of our hiring partners, we've had this large selection that we've worked with over the sort of last 8.5 years. There's no saying necessarily who will be hiring at the time of when people do the course and when they're ready for that job hunt. So we've placed makers in a number of different European countries, but we can't guarantee that there'll be European options for when you've graduated. About 40 to 45% of people get hired through our hiring partners. So still the majority get jobs that they found themselves. And there's no stopping you on who you can apply to after you finish the course. A huge help in the job hunt is our alumni network as well. And this is almost kind of handed to you on a plate once you finish the course. About 2,500 people who are 9 years into their career to a week into their career, and they've done it all. And you'll be in the we have an alumni Slack community, and there's different channels for different types of community groups and different locations. There's everything in there. You can really find and connect with people who have done maybe what you aspire to do. So if that's work in Berlin and be a mobile engineer, there'll be somebody who's done that. And so that can be a real good resource, I think, if someone wants to work outside of the UK. But the vast majority of our hiring partners are based in the UK. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Joe. We have a more sort of technical one from Emilia. Which version of Ruby will we be using, 3.0 or older? Leo?
Yeah, I actually just answered in the chat. That one is like a shorter answer, but 3.0 or older, it is fine. It won't make much difference in the end. So that's fine.
Perfect. Sorry, hadn't swiped down. Lovely. Andrea has asked, what is the structure of the course? I have a small part-time job that I'd have to work around it to pay the bills. Are there any regular breaks? I guess I can take part of this one, is that we do ask our students to be sort of fully dedicated to the course once they're on the full-time course. It may feel like you have time in your weekends and evenings to do part-time work, but the reality is that you need that time to either rest, see friends and family, or be adding to your learning. So doing some additional sort of work outside the course. You can be doing like 50 to 60 hour weeks when you're on the full-time course. So really having a job, we do ask anybody that's sort of offered a space to give up sort of part-time work. So yeah, I think it is sort of thinking about sort of perhaps saving up, you know, perhaps we might have an opportunity next year to do either a skills bootcamp, or, you know, our mission is to try and offer, you know, as many people as possible the chance to do the course without a cost. So just keeping an eye on our website and using this time to save up so that you, when the time comes, you can dedicate yourself fully. I don't know whether, yeah, any of you guys that are on the course right now can sort of attest to sort of like how, I'm going to use the word intense, obviously, hopefully it's still enjoyable and things like that, but like it does take, you know, your time each day. Alex?
It is impossible to have a job while doing this. It is just, I mean, even even my time after my day isn't done, by the way. I mean, I've just switched to this Zoom from my pairing challenge Zoom, but I'm just going back to work after that. There is too many things to be learned, and the little bit of energy that you have left, you really want to dedicate to it, and then also relax and see friends, like Rachel mentioned. But you can't do both at the same time. Like it's not possible. You're gonna have to make choices, and yeah. So I mean, like working is not going to be a thing outside of the course. Impossible.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, so I think just making sure that it's the right time for you, and maybe the 8th of November isn't the right course, but hopefully, yeah, in the future, keep an eye on our website, on newsletter, we'll announce sort of anything else that's coming up like this that might be good for you. All right, I've just seen another one come through. Another query about the Codabyte challenge. Is it judged by speed of solution, or is it more important to have succinct solution and good annotation? Yeah, I'll let Joe take this one, but yeah, it is more about, like you said, making notes about your code, and you do have to complete the 4 challenges in the time. But yeah, I'll pass to Joe to see if he has any tips that he can give.
Yeah, thanks. And there was another question from Mehmet as well. I think they're talking about the Codabyte assessment and saying, is there a tutorial to watch? So there isn't a tutorial to watch, but hopefully, as the current students on the course have said already, it's not necessarily something to worry about too much. It's your usual coding practice, and you'll be able to kind of follow that as you're working through those challenges. The challenges won't be anything unusual. There's not trying to trick you or catch you. If you've worked consistently through your level 8 KYU, level 7 katas on Code Wars, and you've done enough of those, you'll be ready, and you'll have covered everything that you need to. There's a pass mark from Codabyte, and it's Codabyte themselves that mark the assessments, and the screen is also recorded, but the screen's recorded to help us potentially give you the benefit of the doubt. So say if you were in and around maybe just below our pass mark, then maybe we could hop on the video, and if there was something that we could give you the benefit of the doubt for in here, maybe we can use that in your favor and get you over the line. And this is maybe where the annotations can come in handy as well. If there's any time you want to give us your considerations, give us your thoughts, show us that logic that Lisa has mentioned a few times, that problem-solving logic, it's all going to help us maybe give you that benefit of the doubt here and there. But I wouldn't say it's going to make, if you write everything, it's going to make you score 100. It's still about the right answers. But at the same time, the Codabyte assessment is also open book. You can still Google things. So remember that is there. A lot of people surprisingly think that Googling is just cheating, but it's really not. And it becomes a bit of a skill to Google, and you'll become really efficient at it. So do use it. It's in the window of the website. And so we ask to go through there so that we can see what you're Googling. Again, don't feel the pressure of that. You can Google anything, but it's just to help us see, how have you got there? What is your process? is there a mistake in the process? Can you redo it and kind of learn from your mistake? And it's this type of thing that we're looking for. So hopefully that answers.
Thanks, Joe. Perfect. Do shout if your question is in the chat and I've breezed over it, just because there are other sort of messages going on in there as well. But yeah, does anybody else have any questions? Obviously, we have Leo, who's a technical coach, and we have the 3 wonderful students that are on the course. So yeah, do you have like anything else that you want to ask? We have still sort of 20 minutes sort of scheduled, but obviously if the questions sort of fizzle out, we can sort of finish early. But yeah, I do want to give you guys, or all of you, the chance to pick the brains of people on the course, teaching the course, like anything that you've sort of not been able to find on the website. We're happy to answer. If we don't have a question whilst we wait, I'm going to ask a question. Like, is there any advice that as students you would now give to like somebody that was like, that's in your position? So like, you were all in this position, you know, 7, 8, 9 weeks ago. Like, what one piece of advice would you give to people thinking about doing the skills bootcamp? Like, are you glad you joined the skills bootcamp? Yeah, is there any one piece of advice you'd give people? Whilst you're thinking, we have had a question from Sam. What do people say they like and hate most about the bootcamp? I haven't prepped Charlie, Lisa, or Alex, so like, feel free to say anything that you would like what has been good, what has been bad, or like what has been like something that you didn't expect. Like, share it all. It's useful for everybody to hear. So I don't know who wants to go first, or if you're happy to share what do you like and what is perhaps something that shocked you and that you've had to get used to. Perhaps maybe we won't say hate, but something you've had to adapt to.
Well, I will say that taking Joe's words a bit ago in regards to Google is cheating. So yes, I remember myself when I was going through the pre-course or doing to Code Wars, I was Googling like basic things that I now do automatically. Like, I don't longer need to search for those things because the consistency of the course take you to learn those concepts. And I think as long as we stay in the course, as long as we remain focused, learning, taking all those resources and all the information that's given in the course, you will start to grow your mind. You start to think in a way, in a logical way, and you get familiar with all this information. So it's challenging, it's daunting, yeah. As you mentioned, is you need to dedicate to it. But if you really want to look for a career in technology, definitely this is the way how to get there, because it's not an easy career. It's something that requires focus, and it's a lot of information, many things that can be done, but it's what it is. Somebody else was asking about if this will help them on the analytic path. And just to take as an example, this week we are being introduced to databases, which it has a lot to do with data and analytics. And just today, which is the first day of the week, I learned so many things that probably by myself I could have not learned on my own. So yeah, that's what I have to say. I'm enjoying it a lot. I believe my other 2 colleagues as well. And that's what I have to say. Yeah.
Thanks, Charlie. Super helpful to hear. Alex or Lisa, got any other insights for everyone?
Well, I'd like to say I wish I'd done this years ago, because I've learned a lot about myself, and the EQ workshops, they all just change you. I found that transformational, and I've learned to regulate myself and my emotions, how I'm feeling, and to adapt. And I also had to overcome self-doubt, because I thought I couldn't do it, really, because I found it so hard. But now I feel more confident, and it is repetition, it's exposure, and you have to you have to like read and continually do it, and you will consolidate your knowledge, and it'll improve your memory recall and develop your brain. And also what I really like about Makers is that it teaches you to assertiveness, boundaries, and to be proactively kind and build a safe, inclusive environment. And I think that's vital for everyone in all places that you work in. And my frustration is when things don't work. The bootcamp is very intensive. So I worked full time whilst I was doing the pre-course, and that was really tough. I thought I could do it, but it was extremely exhausting. And in hindsight, you know, I probably shouldn't have done that, because I should have allowed my brain to rest, and also just to actually just understand the subject matter better. And also, I like to do things well. You know, I like to understand it and be on top of things and be in a well-structured environment. And here in the boot camp, it's like they do want you to be, you know, like self-led. And I guess I sort of see that too. They have workshops too, but that was a bit difficult. But then if I'm stuck, I do actually ask people, and I watch YouTube videos, and so I kind of approach it a different way. And I do understand that technologies are always changing. Your coaches will be there, so you can just Slack them, you know, if you don't understand. But you know, that's been my experience of the course. And also, like with your classmate, you kind of bond with them because it's so intense for everybody, and you know, people help each other out. So I found that good as well.
Thanks, Lisa. Alex, anything to add? Don't feel like you have to, but if you want to.
No, not really. I mean, I hate you all. Run from it. Run from Makers. It's horrible. But other than that, no. Everything has been said.
Thank you. So Mehmet, I know Joe has sort of answered a little bit about your question. But yeah, I can share my screen and show you Code Wars, and sort of, obviously I've already signed up, so we won't have to go through the first challenge. But if I share my screen here, when I first log into Code Wars, on the left-hand side, there'll be a search bar, and you can search in here. So I would suggest the language. Obviously you want to search for Ruby, and you can select Ruby. Can everyone see my screen, by the way? Yeah, perfect. So searching for Ruby, and here the difficulty, you want to select 8Q as your difficulty. They get harder as you get to level 1, and we want you to focus on level 8s and 7s. So I can select, yeah, 7s, but I would start with level 8s. And then these are the katas on the right-hand side in this list. All of these are level 8s. And they're all in Ruby because I selected Ruby as the language. And then you're going to select the challenge, and then you're going to select train. And then that brings up the kata. We're not going to do one, but here you have your instructions, you have your output. So when you run the code, it will give you, like, if you've passed the test or if you haven't. Down here on the bottom right, you have the sample test that you're going to need to pass in order to sort of complete this kata. When I share some videos with you guys tomorrow, I'll share some code accelerator videos, which will have a coach doing a demonstration. So hopefully that will help you with navigating Code Wars as well, Mehmet. But hopefully that's helped maybe a little bit. If you don't filter.
Can I suggest something?
Yes.
Hi, Isabella here.
Hi, Isabel.
I've done the 100 plus of on the kata. If you go back to search to that first screen, I've got one tip for everyone, because I got frustrated at one point. Yeah, if you go to search and you choose your language, can you please sort by not by newest?
Yeah.
If you choose your Ruby or whichever language, don't do it, go for by popularity. The reason there is because the newest often are not really well tested yet. And I got so frustrated because then P started doing, it was kata 8, and then someone eventually said actually it should be 7 and it should be rewarded. So if you go by popularity, at least you'll go for things people find you know, well tested, well structured question. Because if the question is written in a way which is not logical, you're going to spend too much time thinking of the logic rather than just actually understand what they are doing. So that will save you frustration. I'm talking like a fellow student.
Isabella, thanks so much. That's, yeah, key bit of information. I've not actually heard that tip, so that's great. Because yeah, the code wars katas are written by users, so sometimes, like Isabella said, they're not well tested. They might not be written very easily for you to understand. So that's a great tip. Thanks for sharing. I'm going back to the chat, but feel free to raise your hand if you have a question and want to ask it directly. Sophie has said, hi current students, are there any pieces of knowledge you learned on the course that you wish you could have locked in before starting, or yeah, wish you would have looked into before starting?
I've just typed into the chat as well that I would understand all of the different data structures well, your strings, arrays, hashes, how they're manipulated, if-else statements, regular expressions, etc., because you will be using these regularly. So, and that's what Code Wars will also test. And so you'll be writing code. So it's best to know the code really and how it works.
Thanks, Lisa. Sorry, when I'm answering questions, I don't get up to date with what's going on in the chat, but perfect. All right. Do we have any other questions? We do actually. Sam's asked a question. Lisa, on your comment, what are your favorite resources for regex in Ruby and JavaScript?
I've just typed, so for regex, somebody recommended to me Rubula, and that's been really useful. Because the good thing about going on a course is that you'll meet people, and quite a few people have been doing coding, programming in their spare time, and you swap tips. So like people have passed on things to me, and you know they've exposed things to me, and you do become inspired by them, which help because then there's synergy, there's like greater productivity because you're kind of spurred by them. You're like, okay, I want to be like that too. You know, I want to know more things and share things, etc. So you'll find out more things as well on your course, and people will share things with you. But that's what I know about Ruby. I haven't gone into JavaScript yet, but I'm sure there'll be something similar for that too.
Nice. Yeah, I'd probably add that, yeah, there's so much to learn on the course, as everyone has sort of said already, that I don't think you can ever be 100% ready for makers. You can do, you know, things within your power, and you can, you know, spend a good amount of time looking at the Ruby resources we suggest. But like Leo said, there's always going to be something new, and you have to be comfortable unknowing and not knowing everything at the same time. As long as you're learning each day, you're learning, so you're still progressing, and you're hopefully getting to your end result. So again, remember, can't know everything, especially at the start. I'm not sure, Emilia, if your question is just linking back to the other questions. What is the easiest and the most hard to learn so far by your students? Yeah, have you guys got anything to share about what's been the easiest thing to learn so far and the hardest thing to learn? I think that's what's being asked.
The hardest thing that we had to learn
so far in the course. So
okay.
You, Alex and Lisa and Charlie have all done the pre-course, and so that's the first 4 weeks, and they have done, I believe, 3 weeks of the full-time course.
We're on our fourth.
You're on your fourth, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, they're still, I guess, at the start of their journey, but yeah, don't know if you have anything that you can share.
It's not, I wouldn't say there's one thing that's the hardest. It's the pace that's really hard to, well, not hard, but it does require a lot of effort to keep up and stay focused, etc. But it's absolutely doable, and I think you guys make a great environment for us to feel that way without too much effort. But I wouldn't say there's one special thing that's really hard to understand. I think the learning materials are quite well laid out. We are introduced to it step by step, but also we do a lot of independent learning as well. So I wouldn't say there's one thing. I mean, maybe the web introduction last week was a bit steep, but otherwise it should be fine. And also just to add on the previous questions that Rachel mentioned, not to know everything beforehand, I would definitely add to that you should not do any like preparation thing. The makers is supposed to be your preparation to go into work. So don't prepare to then get prepared to stuff. It's just not worth it.
Thanks, Alex. Perfect. I'm going to move on because we've only sort of got 5 minutes left, so I want to try and get through as many questions as we can. So Mehmet has said that he already knows some HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and a bit of React.js. Will this help to be accepted by makers? So I would say yes, it's definitely going to help having a knowledge of other languages and using other languages. But you will still need to do the Ruby prep resources because the start of the course is in Ruby. So that's why it's important to have that knowledge. And then they've asked, Leo, if you can help. Also, do you teach anything about clouding for developers during the course?
We don't teach cloud computing on the main course. We do have a bit of introduction to some development and a bit of DevOps, but we don't have like a more dedicated thing to cloud on the main immersive bootcamp at least.
Thanks, Leo. Perfect. And Lisa has added sort of a bit of her answer into the chat. If anyone wants to read that, you should all be able to see it. Yeah, I want to invite people for like the last couple of questions. Before we round out, I'll try and set up an email to go out to people that attended. Me and Joe will put some useful resources together to send out. But yeah, hopefully you found it useful. But yeah, let us know if we can fit in like 1 or 2 more questions. But yeah, I will let people have a think. We've got 1 more. Okay, let's do these last 2. Are you on fully remote or the hybrid? How have you found the delivery method?
I can say that with a hybrid, I think you've got the best of both worlds because you get to meet people and build relationships, which is really nice, and support and share information, and you're able to approach the coaches directly and get to meet them. And then we're 2 weeks on and then 2 weeks home rotation, and being home is great as well because you just save extra time, so you can do your own thing before the classes start or the pairing challenges, and that's been really nice too. And you can just video your cohort as well, so it's been really good.
Thank you. I think we will end it there. There are a few more answers in the chat that have just come through about that. But thank you all for attending. I hope it's been useful. Thank you for everyone that has come along and helped answer the questions. We will share some extra information. But yeah, let us know. You can email us admissions@makers.tech if you do have any questions. I think there's also a skills bootcamp email address that you'll be able to find online, but we will email you any important information tomorrow. So yeah, I want to wish you a nice evening, and maybe we will speak to some of you soon. Thanks.
Bye everyone.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
See you.